My name is Rebecca, and this video is going to be all about my abortion experience, and particularly my experience with the abortion pill, which is sometimes called a medication abortion or a chemical abortion. Now, all of these terms can be quite confusing. However, they all are referring to the same process, and that was the process that I chose to go through when I decided to end my pregnancy back in 2013. Now, as I was making this, I thought of all of the things that I didn't know, all of the information I wish I had, the stories, the details that I didn't have access to. And so that's sort of the foundation for this video. I'm going to talk to you about why I made that choice, what was going through my head, how I felt immediately afterwards, and what happened with my story, and where my life is at now. So before I can get to the abortion part of my story, I think it's really important for you to understand what I was going through at the time that I found out I was pregnant. I was 18, about a month away from turning 19 years old, so very, very young. I was living with my parents as a college freshman at Sacramento State University, and I was actually already a mom and a newly single mom to a 10-month-old baby boy that I had had my senior year of high school named Eli. Now, when I was pregnant with my first baby, I really didn't even consider abortion. And part of that is because I grew up in a Christian home. We didn't talk much about abortion, but I considered it sort of to be morally wrong, and I thought it was definitely something I would never go through. I thought I needed to own up to my choices, own up to my actions. I got pregnant, and so I needed to raise and parent this baby. Now, at the time, I didn't know much about being a parent, and so there was sort of this hope and silver lining, and I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also didn't think it would be as hard as it was. And so I thought, Eli and I will have a good life no matter what, and I'm going to stay in school, and he'll go to daycare, and things are going to be okay. And that's sort of what happened, but of course my life was much, much harder. The relationship I had been in with my son's father, which was also the father of this second pregnancy, was extremely toxic. It had hit a point now where there was a ton of physical abuse. There was verbal abuse. He had multiple addictions. And I finally came clean to my parents about all of these lies and secrets I'd been keeping for many years. And to my surprise, they were very understanding. They wanted me and Eli to be safe, and so they said that we could stay there, we could live with them. They wanted to see me finish college and to just be healthy and successful. And so I was really grateful. I was looking forward to my life, to Eli's life, to this fresh start and new chapter. But my parents had, of course, laid some ground rules, and they were totally understandable. And one of them was, don't you ever get pregnant in our house again. We've helped you so much the first time that there better not ever be a next time. And I thought, no problem. I have no intention of getting pregnant. I'm not even in a relationship. I just want to focus on school and my son and getting healthy and going to therapy and working through that broken relationship I had been involved in. And so pregnancy was the last thing on my mind. However, unbeknownst to me, I was already pregnant. So just a couple weeks later, I decided I would take a pregnancy test, really to calm my mind and to ensure that all loose ends from that broken past relationship were really severed. And I didn't want to take it in my house because I was scared my parents would find out. So like so many people, I drove to the grocery store, locked myself in the dirty public restroom, and began to take the test. And within about 20 seconds, I looked down and I saw two bright pink positive lines, and that test was positive. I was shocked. I was devastated. I thought there's no way I can have two babies at 19 years old and raise them as a single mom. I thought my parents would surely kick Eli and I out. I thought Eli's life would be so much harder and that I would have to drop out of school. We would be poor. My children, if I had this baby, would have no dad, and that therefore their life would just be so much more difficult. And so in a moment of panic and fear and crisis, abortion not only seemed like an option, it seemed like a really good option, like a compassionate option. Like this was a choice that I could make And maybe I would feel sad about it, but I would not disrupt anyone else's life any further. Eli would still have a good life. My parents would be spared the shame and embarrassment of me getting pregnant again. And I would, of course, not be kicked out and could finish college. And so that's what went into my decision. And that's how easy it was for me to make this choice and to choose abortion. Now, like so many of you, I turned to the internet looking for everything: abortion clinics, testimonials, prices, all of the information that goes through somebody's head that's considering all of their options with pregnancy. Now, I actually chose to go to a clinic that was not well known. It was a privately owned women's health specialist that could get me in quickly, and it was near my school, and I called them. While also online, I found out that there were 2 types of abortions that I could have. There was a surgical procedure, which many people are familiar with, and then there was the medication or chemical abortion, which is also called the abortion pill. Now, to someone that is living at home, that needs to keep the abortion secret, that needs convenience, that doesn't have a lot of money, the medication abortion choice seemed so much better. It was marketed as safe and simple. You just take a couple of pills and your problem will be over. It seemed more natural. There was no surgery, there was no medical tools, there was no instruments. It seemed less real, like it was less of a physical process. Like if I went through with a medication abortion, I could keep my mental self separated from my physical self and what was actually happening to my body and the baby, and all of that just seemed incredibly appealing. It was also about 1/3 of the cost. At the time, my medication abortion was about $400, and a surgical procedure was about $1,200 or $1,300. And so these were all of the things I was weighing and considering, and all things considered, a medication abortion seemed like the right option for someone like me. In fact, on multiple websites, they boast that you can go back to school or work the very next day. I mean, it was really marketed towards a girl just like me. And so I went to my first appointment at this not well-known clinic, and I had a general idea of how this would go because I had a baby just the year before. And to my surprise, it was very different. In fact, in the exam room, when the ultrasound technician was doing the sonogram, I waited and waited for her to say something, and before I knew it, the ultrasound was over and she pulled back a little bit, and I actually had to sit up, turn to her, and say the words, "Am I pregnant?" And she said, "You are." And I said, "Okay." And I saw that there was a piece of paper that had printed out on the other side of the room, and she went to go grab it and put it in my file. And I looked and I said, "Oh, is that my ultrasound picture that I'd printed out on this piece of paper?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And I asked, "Well, can I keep it?" And that may sound kind of weird to people. However, I just wanted something to kind of remember this pregnancy and this baby by. This was not a decision I wanted to make. It was one I felt I had to make because of a lack of other options and resources. And so if there was any other way in the world that I could have chosen to parent this child, I would have. But I just couldn't. And so I wanted something to remember them by and to kind of honor them by. And she looked at me and she said, "Actually, the only way you can do that is if you write a letter to the clinic director and pay a $35 fee, check or money order, and they'll go ahead and send you the ultrasound images to your house." And I'm thinking, what? Like, where am I? Who does that? This is very strange. This is not how my first OB appointment went. And furthermore, I live with my parents. My dad is very nosy. He holds my mail up to the light. There is no way I can risk that coming to the house. So I said, forget it. I just want to start the abortion today. I will have nothing to remember this baby by, and that's okay. And she very calmly and casually said, "Well, it's Friday and it's after 2 p.m. and we don't give the abortion pill on Fridays or after 2 p.m. And so I'm sitting there, now an emotional wreck, just wanting to get this over with, thinking, why did you bring me here? And so she apologized and she made another appointment for me to come back for the actual abortion medication the following Wednesday. and I woke up. I was all set to lie to everyone about where I was going, had made childcare arrangements for my first child, and instead we had a family emergency. They all needed me desperately, and so I had to stay home with not just my son, but with all of my nieces and nephews. And so there was no way I was getting out of the house that day. Now, I was terrified. I was running out of time because in the state of California back in 2013, you had 9 weeks to go through with the decision to have a medication abortion. That means not 9 weeks in one day, but 9 weeks, up to the 9-week mark in your pregnancy. And I was about 6.5, 7 weeks at this point. So I'm running out of time slowly but surely. And so I decided finally that this clinic was not very kind. They didn't feel safe. And so I turned to the internet looking for another place to go. And of course, that's when I found out about Planned Parenthood, and one of their locations could get me in kind of quickly. Now, living in California, I of course knew about Planned Parenthood. My girlfriends had gone there for not abortions, but for multiple reasons. I mean, it was kind of everybody's trusted friend. But when I was on their site, reading about abortion in particular, I was intrigued. I was impressed. I felt safe. There were lots of different comments and feedback from women that had used them for abortion in the past. I thought, this is a place that's not pro-abortion or pro-life or pro-choice or political. This is just an organization that is there for women like me, making tough decisions that they really don't have to make. And this is a great, trusted place I can go. They've existed for many, many years. They've helped many, many women, and this is a good resource and option. And so I went, and my experience was similar, only during the ultrasound, I was allowed to see the machine. They turned it towards me, and I looked, and I actually paused and asked the ultrasound technician if there was a heartbeat, because in my mind, if there was a heartbeat, it just probably would have been too real. I would have been, in my head, too far along to end a heartbeat. It just would have made it all the more sad, and perhaps I wouldn't have chosen to have the abortion. And so she looked at it and she said, actually, no, you're so early on. I was about 7 weeks, that we don't see a heartbeat at this stage, and this might not be a viable pregnancy. And so I'm laying there thinking, okay, either the heart has not started beating, which is a good thing because I'm ending this pregnancy before the life has really started, or maybe the heart has stopped beating and I'm just going to speed along a pregnancy that wasn't going to make it. I was already going to miscarry. And so I was really comforted by those words. It again made me feel like I was doing something less wrong because it wasn't really a life. It wasn't really a pregnancy. It was just easier to process that way. And so I was all set to have my abortion that day. And she pulled me back into the final room and she said, the last process is I have to take a sample of your blood. And I said, okay, no problem. And I handed her my arm. But what she didn't know and what I didn't think to tell her was that I've always had invisible veins. And so she went to try to get a sample. And unfortunately, she tried and she tried and she tried. And she said, I'm so sorry, but I cannot find a vein and I cannot take your blood and you cannot have your abortion today. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is the third thing to go wrong. What more could happen? I'm running out of time. I'm now over 7 weeks pregnant. I'm panicked. And she said, that's okay. Come back the following week. Bring a note from your doctor with your blood type. We'll bypass this whole needle poking and pricking process. And so that's what I did. And in the meantime, I called Planned Parenthood back and said, look, I have an abortion appointment in a couple days and I ran out of money. I had to make a car payment. I'm a single mom and I don't have money for this abortion. And they said, that's okay. Go down to your local Medicaid office. And that's what I did. And really in less time than it takes at like the DMV, in less than 20 minutes, I was sitting there with a Medicaid worker explaining I need to have an abortion. I don't have the money. I spent it on a bill and I can't charge my insurance because my dad will see it. And they said, say no more. They typed up a piece of paper, stamped it, and said you have 30 days to find an abortion provider, and the emergency temporary Medi-Cal will cover it. That's what it's called in the state of California. And so on March 13th of 2013, I walked into my appointment. I will never ever forget that day. I can tell you, I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a peach cardigan and jeans and boots, and I could tell you that the chairs were exactly like the chairs you sit in elementary school, like the square and plastic ones. So much detail and memory I have from that day. And because I'd been there several other times for multiple appointments, I was pulled back into the last room where I sat with a clinic worker. And this time she had the abortion medication on her desk. And I couldn't believe it. It was real. It was in front of me. And she basically was reiterating everything I read online. You know, this is going to be really natural. You're going to have some heavy bleeding and some cramping. It shouldn't be too painful. This will be much like your monthly menstrual cycle. And the way it works is I'm just going to give you this first pill in the office. And once you take this, there's no going back. And this is going to end your pregnancy. And then tomorrow, when you're ready and when you're comfortable and maybe when you get your son to bed, you're going to take the second set of pills called misoprostol that I'm sending you home with. And I didn't really have any questions. I didn't think to ask at the time, how does something end a pregnancy? How does a pill expel a pregnancy? I didn't have those types of questions, but I did start to get emotional. And she said, you know, Rebecca, just because you're sad doesn't mean you're making the wrong decision. And I thought that is really great advice. She sat in this room with hundreds, maybe thousands of other girls who have made the same difficult, crummy choice, and we don't want to be here, but we have to. This is the best option, and who's to say we're going to regret it tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now? And so with that, I said okay, and I was fully aware of what I was doing. I don't blame this on anyone. And I took the abortion pill. It was in a little Dixie cup, and I swallowed it. And she checked my mouth. Oddly enough, they check your mouth to make sure you swallowed the abortion pill, but the rest of the abortion you do completely on your own without any medical supervision. So as I reflect back on that, I think that is so strange. And then I was just sent on my way with a brown paper bag, much like what you would pack, you know, your lunch in. And by the time I got to my car, which maybe only took a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I sat down and I started going through the bag. And I remember just feeling paralyzed and thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I have a baby at home that I love very much. I'm getting more and more attached to this baby that's growing inside of me. I started thinking, has the pill already run its course in the last couple minutes? Has the baby already passed away? Did it feel any pain? And I just wanted so badly to take back the last 10 minutes of my life, but I couldn't. And so I mentioned earlier that I was a Christian, but I wasn't praying or doing any of the things that I should have been doing as a Christian. But there, outside of this abortion clinic, in desperation and in crisis, I felt like I had nowhere else to turn. No one knew what I was going through. So all I could think to do was pray. And I said, God, if there's a way out of this, please help me find it. And if not, please just help me to forgive myself. And so I prayed, and then I pulled out my phone and I started typing in things like, I started a medication abortion and I've changed my mind. I took the first abortion pill and I don't want to take the second. And so to my surprise, actually what was coming up were old blog forums from the early 2000s from girls just like me who had made a rushed, panicked decision, who wanted to take it all back, who didn't want to take that second set of medication, but the only answer that they were receiving online at that time was, you have to finish what you started. There's no going back. You could have a partially completed abortion, which is very dangerous for your body. Your pregnancy has already ended. Your baby has already passed. There's nothing you could do. And I just felt so desperate, but I kept looking. And finally I was on page 2 of Google, and that's how you know you're really desperate, because page 2 of Google, we all know it's kind of weird and far off from where you started. And I found one website, and it was tailored to someone like me. It said, if you've taken the first abortion pill and you're having second thoughts, please call us. I didn't know who was on the other end of that call, what they were going to say, but I did call. And I spoke to a nurse who was kind and professional, and she asked me questions that none of these abortion providers or the Medicaid office had asked me throughout this process. Like, why do you think abortion's your only option? Have you considered parenting? Have you considered adoption? How do you feel about abortion in general? How do you think you'll feel after your abortion? Are you aware of, counseling services that are there for you? All of the emotional aftermath that could possibly come to someone that chooses an abortion. She also talked about what medication abortion was, and I realized then that the way the abortion pill works, it's called RU486. The medical term is also mifepristone, and the way it works is you take it and it deprives the growing baby of progesterone, and that's sort of like if I were to take away oxygen away from you. Obviously, if I were to do that, your life would end, the pregnancy ends, and it's 24 hours later, the drug that I was instructed to take at home over the toilet with no medical supervision, called misoprostol, I then learned was given to women in active labor at 40 weeks to dilate and contract. It causes their cervix to do that, to dilate and to contract. And so my mind was blown. I had had a baby the year before, and I didn't do well in labor. I certainly wouldn't have signed up to essentially send myself into labor at home over a toilet, but because of the way it was marketed, because I was told it would be like a heavy period, because I was not told I was taking a labor-inducing drug that causes your cervix to dilate and to contract, I went along with it, thinking this was no big deal, it was not going to be very painful, and it was not, a real abortion, like a surgical procedure. It was not as physical. And here I was, just learning how underinformed and misled I was, and so I was shocked. And then she told me about a new regimen called abortion pill reversal, which got progesterone back into my body. That was the goal. If you could get progesterone back into your body and it outcompeted the abortion pill, which took progesterone away, there was a chance to save the pregnancy. Now, I knew there was no 100%. I knew that this may not work, that I may continue to miscarry. I thought about what could happen to the baby now that I've taken this pill and I'm trying to save him or her. And of course, when Planned Parenthood found out, because I didn't return to make sure the abortion was successful, and I told them that I was going through with the progesterone and the abortion pill reversal, they said, if you carry to term, which is not likely, your baby will probably have severe abnormalities. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have a child that not only is born with some type of abnormality, but an abnormality that I had to explain was there because of a choice that I made. And I was also really shocked that Planned Parenthood didn't say, thanks for letting us know, call us and let us know, what happens, let us know if you change your mind, or if you ever need us in the future. It was like they wanted me to finish what I had started in their clinic. And I didn't get it at the time. I was frustrated and I was confused and I was in need of support, and I really could have used some encouragement and some hope at that time, but they just weren't giving it. Their comments were less than hopeful. And so I continued my pregnancy despite what they said, even though every time I coughed or had a pregnancy-related ache, I thought, this is it. I'm losing the baby. This is a consequence of my actions. This baby's going to have something wrong with it. And thankfully that did not happen. On October 20th of 2013, I gave birth to another little boy, my second son, and he was born and still is perfectly healthy. He does not have any physical or mental abnormalities. He excels in school. He played soccer last year and is enrolled to play football this year, so he's athletic and he's witty. He is a joy to have in my life, and I can't believe that he was almost not here. That because of a choice that I made, I almost chose not to have him here. And I didn't know it then, but I do now. And this is the life I would have missed out on. This is what people say is, a harder, less worthy, less fun life. And I can't begin to describe how untrue that is. I was able to finish college with both of my babies watching. It took me about 6 months longer, but it takes everybody, usually a little bit longer than they think. I married a wonderful guy after thinking that no man would ever love me or love my kids and they would never have a two-parent household. I've gone on to have more kids and to get involved in this ministry in particular, the pro-life world, not because I am judgmental and condemning and think that women who have abortions are evil and mean. Instead, I actually understand why people are having abortions, how hopeless they feel. I've been on both sides of it. I also understand what it's like to start an abortion and feel instant guilt and regret and grief. And I now know what it's like to be given a second chance at choice, a second chance at choosing life after making a decision that I initially regretted. And so I'm thankful for abortion pill reversal. Again, I want to stress that it's new. It is using progesterone, so it's not anything weird. It's safe, and there have been over 1,000 babies born after abortion pill reversal that were born without abnormalities and are perfectly healthy today, and their moms are so thankful. And so what I really want to stress to girls that are watching this who haven't yet made the decision, who are still kind of on the fence, is I want you to know that abortion is not your only option, and that there is a really awesome life waiting on the other side of you choosing yes to life for this baby, whether that be yes to parenting or yes to making an adoption plan. And also that typically we don't make good decisions when we are in fight or flight mode, and that's the mode we're in when we're scared. And so I would encourage you to visit a place that does not profit off of your decision, is not there to just encourage and hurry you along in the abortion process, and to instead talk to someone. Maybe it's somebody older, somebody wiser. If you're a Christian, somebody in your church. You seek wise counsel. Talk to people who've had abortions. Talk to people who have chosen life. I would have missed out on so much, and having this amazing kid that Zachariah is, had I gone through with that decision. And at the time, I thought abortion looked a whole lot like hope. That's what was marketed to me, was this idea of hope and a better life after taking this set of medication. And what I know now is that that could not be farther from the truth. Again, there are people and organizations out there willing and ready and able to help you, to help your baby. Whether you have one kid or multiple children, there is a way for you to choose yes to life, yes to parenting, or yes to making an adoption plan. And I would just encourage you to do that, to think about all of the things I have said, because I made a decision from a lack of information. And I hope that this informs you enough to make a better decision for life.